Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Erin Belitskis. I'm the Executive Director of Represent PA. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning. We're glad that you're here, and we think you're going to love hearing today's conversation because we're going to be talking all about how the candidate pipeline gets built. This is going to be one of those briefings that might change the way you look at things. And if you have the time, please share it with your folks after we post it to our YouTube channel. Let me remind you here, at Represent PA, we don't waste time and we don't play politics as usual. We're here because we know the status quo in Harrisburg isn't just outdated, it's failing us. And we're not interested in waiting patiently for it to be fixed. Real change starts when competent progressive women take power. But change doesn't happen on its own. It requires strategy, clarity, and it requires investing in the right candidates early, not after it's convenient. Today's briefing introduces you to 3 organizations that kick off the candidate pipeline process. Finding and vetting the candidates who are ready to run. We're very excited to hear from each of them. But first, I want to explain a little bit of Represent PA's role in the candidate pipeline continuum. As closely as we follow this building process, and we do very much follow it closely and take part in it when appropriate, where we come in is mainly the post-build, with our own endorsement process that's facilitated by our political director, Meg, and the endorsement committee. So how does Represent PA decide who to endorse? The answer is deliberately. We don't rubber stamp applications. We have thoughtful conversations with our applicants with the same level of integrity and intensity we expect from the women that we support. Our endorsement committee asks the hard questions, and they look beyond talking points. They vet candidates for alignment with our progressive values and for something more, the courage and the competence to go against the grain and lead differently. We're looking for candidates who are ready to rewrite the rules and who don't just want a seat at the table, but are ready to flip that table when it's not working for their communities. The process is clear and rigorous. Our candidates complete an in-depth multi-issue questionnaire, and recommendations are then brought to our full board for final approval. And once endorsed, those women have our full force behind them. It's not performative politics. It's principled, precise, and powerful. You'll hear more this morning about how we do this work and why it matters, not just for the women that we endorse, but for the future that we're fighting for across Pennsylvania. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for believing, as we do, that the path forward runs through the brave, brilliant women that are ready to lead. Now, let's get started with our panelists. I am very, very excited to introduce you to 3 amazing people who are doing wonderful work all over Pennsylvania. First, Jasmine Sessoms. Jasmine's a visionary leader at the intersection of civic engagement, philanthropy, and politics. She's deeply committed to the advancement of Philadelphia and beyond. A proud native of the city, Jasmine has dedicated her career to driving meaningful change through strategic leadership, advocacy, and community empowerment. As the president of the
there she is. Thank you.
As the president of the 1968 Collective, Jasmine leads a powerhouse organization that serves as the parent company of Center 1968 and Firm 1968. Inspired by the revolutionary spirit of 1968 and the legacy of Shirley Chisholm's fearless leadership, the 1968 Collective stands firmly on the ethos of being unbought and unbossed. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies.
Next up, Melanie Rose. Melanie has been working in Pennsylvania politics for 9 years and currently serves as the Eastern Regional Director at Run for Something. In this role, she owns the organization's political strategy, from candidate recruitment to campaign resourcing. She's deeply embedded in some of the most critical races each cycle, guiding campaign and finance plans, advising budgets, and ensuring strategic decision-making. Previously, she led the Pennsylvania Senate Democratic Campaign Committee through 2 successful cycles, increasing the size of the caucus and defending every competitive seat. Before that, Melanie served as campaign manager, deputy campaign manager, and finance director on races throughout Pennsylvania. Melanie, good morning, and thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Oliver Truong is the executive outreach director at Lead PA, a progressive pipeline organization recruiting and training leaders to run for office, run campaigns, and lead advocacy organizations here in PA. Oliver serves as a recruiter, advisor, and coach to local and state candidates and campaign staffers across the Commonwealth. In 2020, Oliver served as the campaign manager for top-tier PA state Senate race. Originally from Lancaster, he worked on campaigns in California, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And so we're absolutely glad that he is back in PA and he currently resides in Philadelphia. Oliver, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to just jump right in here. And Jasmine, I would like to start with you. We'd love to hear more about how you got into this work. You do so much in Philadelphia and around. You're a master networker and connector. How do why did you get into this work, first of all? And then, how do you do this work? And what are some of the things that you're looking for when you're recruiting candidates or talking, specifically to people who might be interested in this?
Well, good morning. That is a really big question, and I will do my best to answer each part. So why do I do this work? I started as a political fundraiser many, many moons ago. One of my closest friends was running for office. He's now our appropriations chair. It's always really crazy to even think about it. But he asked me to go and fundraise for him. I didn't even know what I was doing. And he ended up winning his race. This is almost 13 years ago. He ended up winning his race. And so then more people asked me to fundraise for them, and more people and more people. But what I did notice was no women were asking me to fundraise, especially no Black women. And so I wanted to know why. And essentially I pulled together a group of, and at this point it was very tiny, of women that were elected here in our city. 2 were in the state house and 1 was in city council, because I think at that time there was only 1 in city council. And they were like, nobody will want to do this. It is really hard. It's hard to raise money. It's like an old boys club. It is these unspoken rules that we don't know. We don't get the proper support when we run. All of the things that I'm sure if you've joined this call this morning that you've heard come from women, all of the things. So really, I had 4 friends that were getting ready to run, but they were really unsure. And we just kind of created a group in my basement, and I would bring people in to train them to run for office. Lo and behold, it just grew and grew and grew. And we've trained over 1,000 women. And then there were more needs, right? We love that women run for office, but I want to see women, particularly Black women, in the policy office. I want to see them being chiefs of staff. I want to see them as legislative directors. So the center started adding more courses around that. So we have the Barbara Jordan Fellowship Program that does policy work. We have the Crystal Bird Fassad, who was our first state legislator here in PA, first Black woman legislator here in PA. We run for office. So there's lots of programs, the Fannie Lou Hamer voting program, because Black women do vote in very high numbers, but those votes don't actually turn into policies that help them. So that's kind of why I started this work. I wanted to see parity. It's really ironic to be talking about this today because it's Black Women's Equal Pay Day. So if you didn't know, today's the day, right? Black women earn 64 cents to everyone else's dollars. And in order to achieve parity, we won't get there at the rate that we're going until 22, 27. That's about 200 plus years. So that is why I do the work that I do, to continue to be a voice, to show up in rooms that normally Black women don't show up in, and to truly be an advocate. But how do we do it? Yeah, ours is very word of mouth. We post on Instagram and things like that. I'll do talks, but like it is very, very word of mouth, and it's what I love about it. When someone in Texas will call me and say, "I heard there's a center named after Shirley Chisholm," and it is, but it isn't. It's 1968, but it really is word of mouth, and it spreads, right? And when you have a good product, people want to know about it. They want to be a part of it. So honestly, and I will say, Vice President Kamala Harris visiting the center last year, it probably did not hurt, right? Wes Moore visiting the center last year probably did not hurt. Jasmine Crockett visiting the center last year probably did not hurt. But to be very clear, we don't do a lot of promotion. When they came to Philly, the first thing they said was, "We want to see the Shirley Chisholm Institute." And
Yeah.
we happily obliged them.
That's really amazing. I didn't realize that all of those, I knew that some of those women had stopped by, but I had no idea, Jasmine Crockett. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Jasmine, you've been in the space for so long and doing the work. What have you seen sort of over the years? Is it getting easier to recruit Black women? Is it, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
That's a really great question. Yes and no. It's getting easier to recruit people to come to the trainings. It is not getting easier to convince a Black woman to run. We did our part, right? And last year we did our part. We showed up once again, 92+%, and we did not get the government that we voted for. We were betrayed and lied to across the board, right? And so a lot of Black women are taking the stance of, I'm resting, get somebody else to do it. I ain't vote for this. I'm done.
Right.
And so I think that people want, but like our inherent like self, right? The deep Black urge to need to be engaged is overshadowing the need to rest. So they want to be educated. They want to come to the training. I'm also a trainer at Yale Campaign School. And this year, for the first time ever, 36 Black women came to that training out of like 50, right? Well, it's more
Wow.
like, but that's like a lot for Yale. And it's because we are doing it a little bit differently. We want to learn the mechanics of running for office instead of just jumping out there. We want to find the loopholes, and we really want to learn how we can be successful in a system that is not set up for us to be successful at all, right? And so I do think that, yes, it is not necessarily hard to get women to come to the program and learn about the government and learn how to run for office and doing it of best practices. What is hard is to get them to take the leap, but that's always been hard, right? Whereas a white woman, you have to ask her 4 times, I think it is now in 2024. You still have to ask a Black woman 9 times to run for office, right? So like that is literally still, that's always been a struggle. But I think government now is just heavy, and we're taking a year of rest, right? Holla at us in 2026. We're still taking that year of rest. Oh, yes, I agree, Anita. Shout out to Anita Lewis, who I absolutely adore. We are long overdue. I mean, we don't have a Black woman serving in our PA state Senate. That's kind of insane when you think about it. So yes, Anita, I am laser-like focused. We had one, but she has to sit down. We'll talk about that later, but we will find one.
Is there anything that you're particularly excited about this coming cycle?
I am, right. I'm excited about the U.S. Senate race. I don't think it's going to be as easy as some think. There are some really exciting candidates. I'm excited, to see Pennsylvania go back blue, right? Like right now we're red, and we don't like being red over here in our 2 larger cities in Pittsburgh and Philly. We don't like that. That's not what we voted for. And also, I love the attention that is now being paid to low voter turnout. I have now seen articles, not just around election time, but just studies are now coming out as to why voters are not voting, particularly here in PA. I really, really, really love that we are talking about it unapologetically and organizations and even traditional philanthropies are now putting money in, not just around election season where all of our organizations receive so much money. At some point, you're saying, don't give me any more money. I can't spend it fast enough through the cycle. But now they are investing in us throughout the year to really do civics education. In the Philadelphia School District, I just recently found this out from City Council, they actually don't teach civic government. They still have social studies, but like the legislative branch and how a bill becomes a law, that actually isn't taught anymore in schools. And so now traditional philanthropies want to put money into those kind of educational programs. I'm excited about that because normally government and philanthropy, the two do not meet. But I
Yeah.
do think that we're trying really hard to marry the two. So I'm getting really excited about that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We'll come back. Also, folks, if you have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat and we'll definitely get to some of your questions later on. Next up, Melanie, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, you too.
So tell us about Run for Something for some of the people on here who maybe have never, who aren't as familiar with Run for Something. And how are things shaping up this year?
Sure. Things that Run for Something are shaping up way better than I think anyone could have projected. And unfortunately, it's due to the Orange Man getting reelected. But we've had, an exciting twist in the last few weeks. So Run for Something is an organization that recruits, trains, and supports candidates running for office under the age of 40. We are a national organization. We only do state and local races. So we don't do anything federal, basically state legislative down. All the way down to like school board, dog catcher, whatever the smallest local office you can possibly run for. There are states I work with that elect people to library boards, which I think is so cool and exciting. So we kind of help see candidates through the entire process. One of the really exciting things about my job is I get to work with people like Oliver and Jasmine. I would love to connect with you as well. I know we've connected when I used to wear my fundraising hat way back in the day, but definitely want to chat about recruitment stuff now. But I get to work with organizations all across Pennsylvania as well as national orgs in recruiting candidates, going really deep into the demographics of districts, going as deep as we can, trying to find candidates who don't look like the typical candidates that are in office. We're not trying to recruit lawyers and wealthy people to run for office. We're trying to recruit people who live the everyday experiences of people in that community. And that's something Run for Something works really hard at. I think, you asked how things are going. Since the day after the election last year, we've had over 50,000 people organically sign up on our I'm interested in running for office spreadsheet, which is crazy. And I'm so grateful for our partner orgs who are helping us kind of figure out how to navigate that, because we are, a team of 26 who are trying to make our way and make sure we can communicate and keep all of those leads exactly where we want them. And I will add to that since the NYC mayoral race a few weeks ago, we've had an additional 5,000 young progressive candidates also sign up, knowing that, if he can do it, they can do it too. I haven't been able to dig into the data to see what those candidates look like yet, but I've been able to talk to a lot of my younger Muslim, my BIPOC candidates, and a lot of them feel this new wave of, okay, I feel a little more settled in my role as a candidacy because they're starting to see other people that look like them being successful. And that's something we haven't really gotten to experience yet on something that is as big and public as the New York City mayoral race. So that's really exciting. And it has made my job. I oversee Pennsylvania. I've been at Run for Something for almost 3 years now. I did 2 cycles as the Pennsylvania state director. I now cover 17 states. And I get to kind of take a lot of my experience from Pennsylvania and bring it into other states. And I get to bring a lot of the intricacies and chaos that other states get to lend and bring that into Pennsylvania back to us. And it's really exciting. And Run for Something will hopefully not just change the faces and the race of and the nationalities of the candidates we elect. Hopefully we can bring that age gap down a little, especially when you look at something like with the big, beautiful bill that just passed. If, those 3 congressmen who unfortunately did pass away had retired and we were able to elect younger people, we might not have been in a situation in which we had passed the big, beautiful bill. So hopefully the more we continue to fight and bring these younger, more progressive faces into the environment, the more we can start to lift up everyone else around us.
That all sounds absolutely essential to me. So thank you for the work that you do there, Melanie. I do have a couple of questions, specifically like around Pennsylvania. You had mentioned that people get to kind of sign up, right? They can, and that's how they find you through their website. How do you sort of start vetting these candidates or, these potential people who are interested in running?
Yeah, a lot of it is working with partners like Oliver, who
Yeah.
you will hear from at some point, who's done like the Lord's work the last year. I think just constantly calling through. I'll pull a list of like a specific house district and send it over to some of our partners, and he will start doing the research calling. I also will, call for specific districts, email for specific districts, work with our partners, and have a lot of those conversations. I think something that when I'm approaching candidates is, when I'm looking at them, I'm looking at a list, right? And I'm looking
Yeah.
specifically for candidates who are going to fit the district, candidates who maybe we've not tried to run in the district before, candidates who are different than anyone we've ever run, be it their race, their nationality, their religion, their age, their job. I think it's really important that we try new things. We try to bring in people who again are living the lived experiences of people in the district who are working, maybe 9 to 5s or can't afford a home or are living paycheck to paycheck, or have their kids in schools currently and are the ones whose kids are getting the lived experiences of the things that you're putting down there. Something that I think is really, really exciting. I have 2 candidates who are running for Doylestown Township Supervisor right now, and both of them were born and raised in Doylestown, and now are raising their families there. And it has made working with both of their campaigns even easier than easy is a relative term when we're talking about running for office here. But it has made it really easy for them to go door to door and talk to Republicans and independents and Democrats and people who are really jaded about the government, because they can say things like, I stayed, but what I was raised in and the school district I was raised in and the affordability that I was raised in, it no longer exists. And I'm raising my family here, but I want to give my children the opportunity to continue our generational residency in Doylestown. And those are the things we look for. We look for people who are ingrained in their communities. We look for people who are passionate about their communities, but that doesn't mean being involved with their local Democratic Party. It might mean being a
Right.
volunteer at a food bank or, a volunteer. I know there's this really cool organization in Lancaster that like they get on their kayaks and they clean up trash out of the river. And like those
Wow.
are the really cool, like outside politically adjacent places we are looking to engage with.
You bring up some very interesting points about, I think when people think about the candidate pipeline, they're thinking like, oh, well, I'm going to get tapped by somebody, right? And it's usually a current elected official who's a guy, older, right? And they sort of just tap their friends, right? They're tapping the people who are like them. So to be very deliberate and really going after that, I think is such a, I think it's a little bit of like flipping that narrative, right? And like it's so important. to do that so that we actually, again, have like that representation in Harrisburg. Have you, like, in the time that you've been there, Melanie, what have you sort of seen with the candidates and the pipeline? Like, have things sort of changed, or, for better or for worse, or how are you, looking at that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. And I think, and I'm just gonna kind of like say this and then I will answer your question. I think something that has remained consistent and something that I bring a unique perspective to when I'm recruiting candidates is that as a manager, I've been on the side of candidates who have been recruited. As the executive director of the SDCC, I've been the person doing the candidate recruitment. And now as the Eastern Regional Director at Run for Something, I'm kind of on the recruitment side, but also the candidate support side. And something that I really, and Fern can probably attest to this, I am nothing but like transparent and blunt about what the candidate experience is like. And what the realities and expectations are of running for office. And that's not just about kind of what kind of support Run for Something can offer or what kind of support they can expect from outside organizations. And this goes from, really hard to win tier 3 seats all the way up to our tier 1 red to blue must flips or must protects. I'm very honest about what the realities are. Running for state and local office, a lot of these candidates are running in their small communities, right? Small districts means small communities. So the more you are putting your face, your likeness, your name out there, the more people are going to recognize you. So ensuring that however my candidates are showing up is 100% them, that they're not getting pushed to talk about messaging and things they're not comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be, win or lose, they're going to be the one walking down a grocery aisle, getting recognized, and I want them to continue to feel safe in their environment. That being said, in terms of recruitment, it goes up and down. Much like everything that is going on in the world right now, we have really good weeks where, people are really motivated and they want to run. And we have really bad weeks where people are like, absolutely not, I'm out. That tragedy in Minnesota the other day really spooked a lot of candidates because it's really hard to sit here and recruit a candidate, any candidate, but especially, our Black and brown candidates, our trans candidates, to look them in the face and ask them to go do this when the entire world feels like it is out to get them, and you can never guarantee somebody's safety. So really working again with a lot of our partner organizations at Run for Something, both within the state and nationally, to put together safety, cyber safety trainings, talking about how to remain safe on the campaign trail, talking about ways to make sure you as a candidate feel safe. All of these things are really important. And I think there was a certain time where the people who are doing candidate recruitment were kind of what you said, Erin. It was an already elected official just kind of tapping someone and being like, okay, it's your turn. This is how much funding you're going to get. Here's what to expect. But as a lot of organizations nationally and state and locally start to kind of demystify what it's like to run for office, we're going to get to bring in a lot of new people. But with that comes a lot of new resources that are needed, and a lot of new approaches that need to be developed because we are working with communities who have never felt safe being, the public figure and the public face. And that's absolutely something that has been hard. The week after, the few days following the elected officials being shot in Minnesota, I had candidates who were like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I don't feel safe doing this. I don't want to do this. And we really had to work with our partners and talk to them about, okay, well, like, here's how we can make you feel safe, but we can never guarantee your safety. And unfortunately, this is one of those things that, does need to be said. Running for office is a very scary and vulnerable thing. And I wholeheartedly believe that the more transparent we are about fundraising and safety and what kinds of resources you're going to get from caucuses and labor unions and what kind of work it takes to get there. The more engaged we will get from our candidates, because they're going to be 100% bought in with all of the things that come with being a candidate. I think that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate that. I think you've shed a lot of light on, honestly, like the current situation right now on the ground. So thank you for being honest and candid with us about that. So much more to talk to, but I absolutely want to get to Oliver. And again, thank you, Oliver, for being here this morning. And again, for everyone who's on the call who may not be as familiar with Lead PA, please, give us let us know what Lead PA is, what it does, and your role in that.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. My name is Oliver Truong. I am with Lead PA. We're a progressive statewide organization that recruits and trains leaders to run for office, run campaigns, and run advocacy organizations. I also want to say that I have another hat where I am a state advisor with the Pipeline Fund. The Pipeline Fund is a national organization that convenes and resources pipeline organizations or candidate pipeline organizations all throughout the country. In that specific role, I do consult with with other state infrastructure groups and donors on how to conceive of a candidate pipeline organization or hub within their states. So one of the things that we do talk about at the Pipeline Fund is this, like, what is the actual pipeline? What are the elements of the pipeline? And here on this slide is what we have decided are the critical pieces of work that kind of comprise candidate recruitment pipeline work, right? From inspirational general recruitment, right? Seeding the idea, making it feel possible, like capturing the energy that Melanie said that we have seen through both positive developments and negative developments in our political ecosystem, to specific trainings for candidates and staff. Lead PA is a training organization. The work that Jasmine does definitely fits into this bucket. Candidate recruitment support. Right, the tapping on the shoulder, the direct solicitation of, hey, you should really think about doing this. You should consider this office. You should run. Like all of the activities that are in that bucket. Endorsement and financial support. I think this group knows very, very well the importance of the financial support. Represent clearly sits in this bucket. And then on the other end, governance and support and training, right? It's one thing to get these folks successfully elected. It's another thing to make them successful in that office, right? And so there's another whole group of work and organizations that really focus on ensuring that these people are successful and that they can win their reelection, that they don't immediately become accountability targets because of, maybe they just didn't know how some very obscure thing in their body or the culture within that board, right? We want to mitigate all of that so that they can be continually strong leaders and representatives of the entire coalition that we're trying to build. And so when we think about this work, we try to really think about where we can flex and where we can work with partners to bring in to Pennsylvania on how we can really increase this robust pipeline. Tiffany, you can take the slide down. Thank you for pulling that up. So the work that I do specifically at Lead PA is right now it's a lot of outbound recruitment. So I think to date maybe made 300 outbound calls off of a national list. One of the things that the Pipeline Fund has been really great with is that they've supported the development of some recruitment software. So in the past, you can imagine that every organization had a list. And then I would call, and sometimes I still do this, right? I would call someone like Melanie. Hi, Melanie. I'm looking for folks to run in this particular district. Who's on your list? And then she would get that list to me. And then I had to go to Emily's list, and I had to go to 314 Action. And then I had to go to all of these other organizations to receive that list. So these lists don't talk to each other. Any insights that I have gained or relationships don't feed back. And so the Pipeline Fund is trying to create a technology that integrates all of this so that we can have more shared insights that I can quickly cut lists. And that has increased the efficiency of my work. And so, yes, I'm the one on the call, cold calling some of these folks and say, hey, you responded to a text or you were on this list, and I just want to follow up. Are you interested in running for office? And so that's one side of it. The other side of it is actively seeking out specific profiles with the inclusion of partner feedback. So one of the things that I do is I convene a recruitment table of a lot of our partners, both state, national, specifically for the State House and the State Senate, right? A clearinghouse conversation so that we can reduce the phone tag, the whisper down the lane, so we can all come into one space, understand what those priorities are, talk about challenges in a shared space. And sometimes in that space, there's ideal profiles. And so, okay, so we're kind of looking for an educator or someone with a public safety background, and that might help push organizations to kind of filter for that. The way that I think about it is then I go to my local partners, I see some of them on the call, and I ask them directly, hey, do you know anybody in your network? So when it comes to recruitment, especially in Pennsylvania, especially in an even year, especially for the State House and State Senate, it is all hands on deck, every single channel that you can possibly think of. And we're trying to kind of manage this conversation collectively. It's quite an exciting time for me because, like, yeah, I'm literally doing call time for candidates right now. I've cut multiple lists and trying to get more people to kind of jump in and call. And so that's only a slice of what we do. Obviously, we have a lot of different trainings. One thing I do want to point out is that something that Jasmine mentioned, which is the gap in civic engagement. And we see that everywhere across the state. And when it comes to the candidate pipeline, it really comes out in these local offices. Nobody knows what a township auditor does. They don't understand why they have to elect a tax collector. And so we've created programs to actually explain their local government specifically to the audience that has requested this training. So they actually know what these functions do and who these people are, how long they've been in office, whether or not they're compensated, and when they're next up. And so that civic engagement, civic education program is really, really critical because we have had such a yawning gap within the education system, and that has definitely set up a system, especially in local government, where people don't even know what they're electing. And all of a sudden they have these names and are expected to make a choice. So we're trying to find ways of closing that gap, introduce people to content that is low stakes, because it is quite scary when you have someone like me who's like super energetic, like, hey, you should run for state house. They're like, I don't even know you. So to try to create some of these easier low stakes on ramps into this conversation about service is what can help really start seeding the idea so that we're getting folks when they're ready to make that commitment. Because as Melanie said, it's a lot. We're asking people to fundamentally change their status in their community. And that's really hard.
Yeah. And, thank you for sharing that. Bringing it back to sort of, represent plays in with State House and State Senate, right? And I think Melanie mentioned before, she talked a little bit about tiered race, or, the tiering system that is used in the candidate pipeline. Can you talk a little bit about that, Oliver? Like, what is it and how do you use that?
Ooh, I definitely want to make sure Melanie's here to tap in, as she's the one in her previous roles who have actually enacted the tiering system.
Well, whoever feels comfortable answering it,
I'll
please.
start.
We can tag team this.
Okay. So the tiering system is a function and a tool and a framework to think about how to direct a limited amount of resources to the highest impact races. And so, right, it's like I think of this as the 80-20 rule. We try to take 80% of the resources and put them into the top 20% of impactful races. And so that means that there's a cut. And I think for candidates and campaigns and communities, it's really hard to kind of contextualize this. But when I talk to folks, I talk about their specific district and say, it is important. We want.
I'm on a Zoom right now. That's not that important.
We want to.
Excuse me, please mute yourself. Thank you. Go on.
We want to, like the local folks, the candidates, they know that this is possibly winnable, but we have to zoom out to this statewide perspective and say, for the caucuses, they're trying to reach a path to the majority or expand the majority, and so your race may or may not be on that list. And so districts start in tiers. there's ways that candidates may change that, going up a tier or down a tier. It's quite an emotional experience because it is very qualitative. It's not necessarily quantitative, and I think that's the really hard thing to do when we're trying to understand the system. I'm going to turn this over to Melanie and see if she has any other notes.
Yeah, I'd say that from a previous caucus director perspective, obviously high priority and putting myself in the seat and thinking about, someone like the executive director of the state house, right? Like we have the majority by one seat right now. So knowing that, taking all of those vulnerable incumbent seats and making sure they have everything they need so that at the very least we can grow our majority. The next thing you're going to look for is the seats. Now, we live in Pennsylvania. Things have changed so rapidly since 2020. The national environment, the state environment, how we vote in Pennsylvania has shifted. So I actually think 2026 is going to be a really interesting year because it's going to be the first state legislative year that we have enough data to actually calculate things like vote by mail and how people vote and voting patterns in the new system that we have. So I think 2026 is going to be really interesting. But one of the things that Oliver and I have talked a lot about is that when we are working with caucuses, a lot of times they put all of their focus into these tier 1 and these like bubble tier 2 seats. So a lot of work Run for Something and Lead PA and other organizations like to do is kind of adopt their lower tier seats and make sure that they're getting we're recruiting there too. Somebody commented in the chat about Virginia. The recruitment table in Virginia, by adopting the same thing that we do in Pennsylvania, they recruited to fill every single one of their state house seats, which is absolutely incredible. And Pennsylvania is next. This is the goal. The goal is to have a Democrat running in every single seat so that no Republican goes unopposed for the state house or the state Senate. And that does mean doing a lot of collaborative work. And it also means ensuring that while we know the caucuses are going to take care of their higher tier seats that they need to flip, that they need to protect, making sure that organizations like Lead PA, like Run, my work with my candidates and Run for Something, are addressing the training gap that comes with that. Because if I have a tier 3 candidate who's running in Mercer County in a heavily red district, them attending a training that is tailored to a tier 1 seat is going to leave them, frankly, it's going to create a problem with how campaigns are run. Defining what success looks like for candidates is really, really important when you're talking to a candidate to recruit. And because of that, success for a tier 1 candidate is winning. The goal is to win, but success and that means, these 2 million really high $1.5 million budgets plus. But for a tier 3 candidate, success might mean increasing the Democratic turnout.
Right.
And so having those conversations with our partner organizations and kind of keeping what success means in mind, because success doesn't always mean winning. It means like, how can we build a local pipeline? How can we help build local infrastructure? How can we help make it so that a Democrat is not walking into the office, into the voting booth on election day and not even having a Democrat to vote for? Because the first time a voter walks in and sees that there's a name on the ballot for the first time, they might go, oh, there are other people like me, and I didn't know that. And that's kind of how we start to build and spread that. And I think that it's something that I, as a caucus director, I know I kind of neglected. I put a lot of focus onto my tier 1 and tier 2 races, and it's something that I now, in a new role, I'm like, well, I never realized what kinds of gap I was giving my lower tier races. And I think it is really, I've personally tried to change my approach, but I think these recruitment tables have also really started to say like, okay, you take these and we'll help you with training resources, and we'll take these and we'll adjust the training resources to help. And I think this like really collaborative process is only going to continue to get stronger. And hopefully will lead to us having 100% recruitment in House and Senate next year.
Absolutely. That's
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. That is amazing. And thank you too for, pointing out that success does look different for some of these tiers. I think that really is a really interesting and important point to understand, right? Like you got to have Democrats running, and that those races help increase, voter turnout for Democrats as well. So, I wanted to go and can we take a look in the chat? I'm not sure if there's any questions there. Does somebody, Tiffany, can you help me out here? I wasn't sure if I haven't been paying attention to the chat too closely because I've been so engaged in the conversation. Are there any questions here?
There's a few. Heidi had a question about, where is it? I might have lost it.
Oh, here we go. Are recruitment orgs in other states better than Pennsylvania in list sharing?
I had responded to that in the chat, but obviously as a regional director, I sit on recruitment tables in multiple states. There are some states that don't have them yet that we are working on getting them set up, and are getting to test out new tools. And there are a lot of states that, kind of like PA before this, just had a lot of spreadsheets. The problem with these spreadsheets is there's a lot of turnover in politics. People will go work on presidential races, they'll go work for a national org, they'll go campaign to campaign and org to org, which is the nature of the work we do. But because of that, a lot of times things can get lost in translation. And that's why the tool Oliver is talking about that Pipeline is working on is so important, because it's going to allow us to house everything in one spot. So if Oliver leaves lead PA, don't do that. If I run for something, which I'm not going to do, all of the work we've been doing, the notes from candidates we've talked to, if I call a candidate and they're like, well, I can't run in 2026, but I'm interested in maybe a local race in 2027 or running in 2028, that note's not getting lost with us. It's going to live in one spot. And I think a lot of recruitment tables are working with Pipeline to get this in place, which will change kind of the longevity of recruitment, and the impact of recruitment long term, and the impact of maintaining our pipeline as warm leads instead of having to cold call these people every time. I wouldn't say that there are other recruitment tables are better. Every state is so different. I know in Arkansas, your candidates for 2026 have to file in 2025. So like you have to start recruiting a year in advance. 2024, you're recruiting for candidates to file in 2025 for 2026. So, and a lot of it does have to do with like states and voter suppression and disenfranchisement. And Erin could probably do an entire separate call on this. But
well, thank you. Yeah.
No other state's better, just different. And I think Oliver's heard me talk a lot about how I think the world of our Florida recruitment table partners, because they do like recruitment table calls, but then they do breakout calls separately for targeted school boards or targeted state ledge races, and really break down the profiles of races. And it's something we've talked about adopting, right? Like I think we can learn a lot from other states, but I don't know that anyone does it better, just different based off of whatever chaos their state decides to give them.
Great, thank you. This is a question for all the panelists here. You know, is there anything specifically that we should be taking away from this candidate recruitment pipeline? Is there anything specifically that we need to know before we end our time here? We only have a few minutes left. What's the one thing that you want us to really know and understand about the work that you're doing?
I can start. I'll say that everybody is a recruiter. I'd say that everybody is a recruiter because one, for just the volume challenge, two, like you know your people best, and three, people need to hear it. The system as it was designed before, right, and closed doors, preferred candidate lists, you know, secret taps on the shoulder just doesn't work anymore. We're in a different time in our country, and we need more people to run. And just, you know, sprinkle the idea that can help pay dividends in the future. So start the conversation. You can tap someone on the shoulder, plant the seed, and just help kind of socialize this idea that we need more people running.
Absolutely.
I'd also add to that what we're doing is improving, and the work that Represent does is helping. I did some quick stat lookups before this just because I was curious. In 2018, Pennsylvania was ranked 49th out of 50 in the percent of women running for office. As of 2023, we are ranked 29th. So we've gone up significantly, and a lot of that does have to do with the work the recruitment tables are doing to try to change what our elected officials look like municipally and locally, and the state ledge level. I think 31% of the seats in the state house are held by women. That's Democrat and Republican. 38% of the seats in the state Senate are held by women, and I believe it's 29% of our municipal seats are held by women. And that's huge. We were, again, ranked 49th out of 50. I think Alabama was the state under us, and we are now 29. And the more that we have organizations like Represent, who are frequently the first check to a lot of our women candidates who, you know, like Jasmine said, women are, the fundraising aspect of it is really, really scary. When women are making these phone calls, they don't want, it's scary to ask for help. It's in a woman's nature to not want to ask for help, to just kind of do things. So the more we continue to both demystify what fundraising actually is and isn't, and the more we have organizations like Represent who are, you know, not asking for anything. They're showing up and they're thanking them for running for office, and usually it is with a generous check. Is the thing that woman candidate needs to say, okay, I can keep going. I can keep making these calls. I can keep making these asks. And what we're doing is working. Like we can get out of the 20s. We can get maybe into the 10s. Right. We can be the best state in the country if we keep working together, if we keep recruiting candidates. Is, you know, if you're a grocery store checkout person, if you know, your kid's daycare teacher, someone you meet on the sidelines at, you know, a soccer game or a, you know, a little league game, those are all people who could step up to run. They're already talking to people every day, as you know, working at a cash register. Maybe they're coaching their kids' little league or soccer team, which means they're already in a type of leadership role. Watching the people around you and going, oh, they can run for office is how we're going to keep doing this. And then you can just ask Erin for our contact information, and we'll put them in a really cool spreadsheet.
I love it.
I have a little bit of a different lens. I do think what Oliver and Melanie have said is really fruitful. You know, go and ask somebody to run. But there is a little bit more, right? We have moved up in women running. We are 39th in electing Black women in our state. It is actually abysmal. It is unfunny, and I think it gets overshadowed when people say like the PA is electing women. They're only electing a certain kind of women, to be very clear. I don't want these stats to be misconstrued. I love that we are definitely electing women, but we are only electing a certain kind of woman, right, to our offices here in Pennsylvania. Again, I just want to restate, we don't even have a Black woman sitting in the PA Senate.
Right.
Right. So to be clear, yes, we are doing better with electing women. We are not doing better with electing Black women. We are actually doing worse because 3 Black women have retired from city council. I believe Pittsburgh actually doesn't have one at all. So
We don't.
those are the things that the center faces day in and day out. I would love to do massive recruitments, right? But while we're recruiting, we have to keep the women that we have placed there safe. What do you do when both parties hate how you look, right? The Democratic Party is not friendly to Black ladies, and neither is the Republican Party. Working Families is doing better with Black women, but it's still not great and uncomfortable, right? So what do you do when you fight for one party and they are unfriendly to you? They do not support you in the way that you need to be supported, right? So we kind of deal with a little bit different. We have to deal really, really holistically with our candidates. So we have a Black Speaker of the House. We put almost 100% of our efforts in making sure that Representative Joanna McClinton stays there and continues to represent. And I do think organizations like Represent PAC is really important. I know you guys, we got Jo really early when she was in her special election, right?
Yeah.
We were a little late to the table on Joanna, right? But we saw something in her from the jump, from being a DA and working in Senator Williams' office. We saw something really early in Donna Bullock. And then everyone else kind of came along. So if I have one ask today, it's yes, look at the grocery store person, look at all of those things, but also think about the wraparound services that they will need, right? They will not be able to quit their job to run for office full time like most candidates, right? They will probably need some sort of childcare. They might be taking care of elderly parents, et cetera. Black women typically are the caregivers in their family. So please think about that when you're thinking of asking somebody to run. Say, hey, do you have children? Can I provide babysitting services? Can I help you with a meal train? So it's those kind of things that I'll ask that you wrap around, because sometimes when we just tap people to run, they want to run, but they don't even know how to ask for the help. So, but yeah, the work that you guys are doing, I love the diversity that you have within your candidates. Look at your boards, right? Put some Black ladies on your boards and in governing and leadership positions, because that's really important to you. And everybody does not have to run for office. Sometimes go make a fundraiser, go make a chief of staff, go make a campaign manager, because those are really important too. And those are lacking diversity. I think the last time I read a stat, NPA, 2% of Black women work on campaigns, paid, right? Because it doesn't pay a lot, it's hard work, blah, blah, blah. So think about those stats as well while you're thinking of how you want to build out your programs in 2026.
Thank you. And with that, I want to thank all of our panelists. This has been a very fruitful, interesting, and enlightening discussion. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you all for being here as well. I would be remiss, though, if I did not mention that we do have partnerships with Emily's List and with Emerge Pennsylvania. They're also wonderful partners that we also used in our candidate recruitment. They were not, we can't have everyone on all the time, but we did want to let people know that we do partner with, and still do, with Emily's List and Emerge Pennsylvania. And one more thing, Tiffany, you can go ahead and put those slides back up there. just to talk a little bit again about our endorsement process and our endorsement committee. Once we do know who, and we start getting applications from candidates about who are interested in receiving Represent PA's endorsement, we do put together an endorsement committee, and that is led by Meg, our political director. And if you would like to receive an invite to our endorsement committee, if you donate $1,200 to us, you can be part of the conversation. And that donation can be made over the cycle that we're currently in. But that is something that we have always offered to our donors. And if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out and we'll talk to you about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.